Western region covers about 10% of Ghana's land area, but contributes over 50% of its wealth. Originally covered by tropical forest with a rich coastline and marine environment, the western region of Ghana has now a population approaching 2.5 million. It is traditionally home to the Anin, Sefwe, Wassa, Nzma and Ahanta people. The region is Ghana's most endowed in terms of climate and natural resources and has attracted high levels of investment over the past centuries. The dominant sectors of the region's economy are agriculture, forestry, mining and recently oil and gas. The oil and gas offshore exploitation has now greatly increased the demand for land and raised the pressure on already overstretched infrastructure as well as increased in migration, with the attendant challenges. Development proposals are made without any consideration to the other projects that are being planned, or of their impact on existing uses of land, settlements or infrastructure. The result is emerging chaotic development patterns that highlights the absence of spatial policy or adequately resourced governing institutions to coordinate and harmonize the ongoing developments. The market has been left to allocate uses for land, without proper consideration as to their effects, and in most cases developments guide planning when it should be the other way around. The region was therefore been selected for the preparation of the first regional spatial development framework in Ghana, spearheaded by the Town and Country Planning Department, under the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, with the support from the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, regarding strengthening environmental management of the oil and gas sector in Ghana.
Yes, the Western Regional Spatial Development Framework came about because of the oil find that came up in the region. You realize that Western region, even though covers about 10% of the country's landmass, it does contribute about 50% of the national economy. It is in agriculture, mining, forestry, and lately the oil and gas. And this is the main stay of the country. And so it was found necessary that if this is the country's breadbasket, then we needed to look at a special framework that will guide development in the region. Fortunately, we got the Norwegians coming in to assist us in the preparation of this particular framework with the assistance of the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation.
And from my experience and working in other countries, I know the case of Nigeria, the Delta. It's a disaster. It's really a disaster. So I told them, my dear friends, oil and gas is the new kid on the block. So how to accommodate it within the cash crop, you know, palm oil, rubber, cocoa, which is quite strong in Western region. Western region actually, even if it's 10% of the area of Ghana, it contributes nearly with 90% to the GDP of Ghana, excluding gas and oil. So I said, okay, let's make a good example for Africa in here, and Western region is the right platform.
The Spatial Development Framework is a policy document prepared in accordance with the new land use and spatial planning model in line with the current provisions in legislation and will be aligned with the National Infrastructure Plan as concerns the spatial texture of Western region.
The Spatial Development Framework is part of the ongoing process of government to revamp the land use and spatial planning system in Ghana. If you would recall, under the Ghana Land Administration Project, the government of Ghana is in the process of introducing reforms in the land sector in general. And the land use aspect of land is so important that the land use and spatial planning project has been one of the components of the land administration project. So as part of the process to introduce sanity into land use and spatial planning, under the first phase of the project, the Department of Town and Country Planning was tasked with the responsibility of introducing a new land use and spatial planning system.
The goal of the framework is to provide policies that will guide the spatial development of the region over the next 20 years. It prescribes an orderly, sustainable, and cohesive land use plan and a platform for integrating social, economic, infrastructure and environmental development strategies within the current policies of the Government of Ghana to guide the lower levels of the planning model.
Yeah, the framework has a lot of benefits to the nation, to investors, to individual developers. At the national level, in fact, government would be guided by the infrastructure that needs to be provided to enhance the socio-economic development of the nation. As the framework indicates the trunk infrastructure, government would be in a position to prioritize what type of infrastructure they would provide. In addition to that, they would be able to acquire land, especially for roads, so that in the future development of those roads, they don't pay compensation to people who would have somehow have settled on the land. And also, it wouldn't also lead to the displacement of people and resettling them somewhere, which creates a lot of problems. But when the framework is provided, it guides government in the provision of the infrastructure and the acquisition of the land for the public sector activities.
For the private sector, this arrangement, which if properly supported, if it is properly implemented, will ensure that the private developer knows exactly where an activity will take place and where an activity cannot take place. So this is something that has been missing in our country for some time.
We have started with an ongoing awareness creation process. Most often, it is not that people are generally not law-abiding, but sometimes ignorance as to what to do makes people think that a simple process is too hectic to even follow. But in the gradual awareness creation process, where we are educating the general public as to what to do, especially in obtaining a permit, in developing an area, people are now beginning to be conscious of the fact that I can easily do this and then ensure that my development conforms with the legal requirements and the technical requirements of the area.
It is likely that the considerable investments in the region will increase, particularly in the oil and gas sector and related industries. This poses high strains on land resources and spatial development.
Now, we thought that if we do not control the mad rush for land at the time, this picked up because of the oil find. We said, why not we just step in and control the mad rush for land? Before the oil find, the Western region was known for agriculture. Mainly in the northern part of the region, it's mainly for agric. The coastal regions were known for fishing, and then the middle belt was for mining. They realized that if we do not intervene, that the oil find was going to send everybody down south to the detriment of the mainstay, which is agriculture. and of course fishing. And so the essence was to come in, prepare a framework, and apportion, more or less, apportion land use for various activities within the region.
And for investors, any investor would want to look at the long-term benefits. And because the framework has a long-term perspective, it guides investors as to where they can invest their resources for the present, medium-term, and long-term benefits. And it is good for investors in particular. And to landowners, when they know that a particular area would open up, they wouldn't just throw their land away at a pittance.
The Regional Spatial Development Framework will inform the preparation of spatial development frameworks for each of the 22 districts in the region.
So as a nation, it is primary for most advanced countries. Spatial planning is extremely important because that actually helps them forecast the future in terms of how to put the space and development together.
Districts are empowered to produce legally binding structure plans for their main towns and development areas that define precise zones for development.
Land can be owned by A, B, C, but the use of the land is determined only by the local government, so by the district assembly.
A structure plan was prepared for Shaman, indicating how the land there would be used. And then also area where we have the petrochemical industries. A structure plan was also prepared for that area. And in addition to that, local plans were prepared for Atwabo and then also for some other areas in Elebele for the petrochemical industries, and the Atwabo local plan was to guide the oil, the gas infrastructure development. So you look at the hierarchical system where the framework provides guidance for the preparation of the other plans, but the details are then from the lower hierarchy plans moving up to update the upper hierarchy plan.
Now, what I remember that was happening was, you see, is a regional spatial development framework. Then the lower levels, the district assemblies also had to then develop theirs based on the regional framework. So that has to happen. I know that at least the 5 or 6 coastal districts in the western region were also being supported to develop theirs. That has to happen, and it is at that level that the implementation is most critical. At the regional level, at best, Regional Coordinating Council should ensure that the district levels are implementing their frameworks and local plans based on the regional framework.
And that also guides the MMDAs to then formulate detailed plans for implementation. And it also provides an opportunity for them to use the District Assembly Common Fund and also invite other investors to invest in the proposals of their medium-term development plans.
Well, the SDF was able to establish 3 major fiscal developmental or areas for intervention. We had the coastal stretch, which was limited to the hospitality and the oil and gas, as well as fishing activity. The middle belt is for the mining and farming activity. Then we have the northern sector, which deals with the cash crops, food crops, and lumbering. This, to us, is very unique because it's going to allow to sort of direct developers or prospective investors to areas where they have their interest.
With the district planning authorities, they are being made aware of the SDF. So it is us to ensure that they conform with what the SDF is speaking up to prepare lower level plans, a district SDF and a structure plan and a local plan. Once you prepare this, at every level you do stakeholder engagement, and landowners, they are made part of the decision making, then of course implementation becomes viable.
Ellembelle districts, we were privileged to be, the district were privileged to be selected as one of the districts that the Western Regional SDF identified for the second level of the planning, which is the spatial plan, to be prepared. So I can say Ellembelle have a spatial plan or a structural plan in place, which we are implementing now. And then the structural plan area comprises of Enyinase to Atuabo to Bakanta, Sanzule Bakanta area.
Applications for development permits are based on these as well as approved local plans which are detailed down to the individual plot level.
My argument was, you don't go and deal with the chiefs. This is a country with established institutions, with a government. You go to the ministry responsible for whatever development you want to do. The ministry refers you to the district assembly, and then they will guide you to the best spot. Because the local communities, you can cheat them with anything. Tell them, okay, bribe them, whatever. And then they believe, oh, this is the type of development we want. But come on, this type of development, if there is an accident, a deep harbor close to a gas plant, a crane can fall. A deep harbor, deep port, what are they doing? They're welding. Even if we don't need that, you know. I'm from COWI and we have diver engineers that go and weld underwater. But it's a recipe for disaster. A crane falls on a tank, gas tank. The village, Atvabo, the village behind Atvabo disappears. So I was protecting the community and I was telling them any investor has to go the right way. Has to come to the government, apply for a permit, and then they should guide him to the right place. Not come and negotiate and deal with the chiefs who don't have this knowledge, you know. The law is not there yet. It's still a bill. It's not passed. And us as consultants from COWI, Denmark, or from McKinsey, or from ACOM, or whoever, will not nurse a bill through the parliament. It's your job. And your parliamentarians should really, really take this type of things seriously. You know, you need to have a legislation that says, this is the plan. You're not allowed to develop in there. You're allowed to develop in here. Direct investments. Investors are queuing to come into Ghana.
Most often, it is not that people are generally not law-abiding, but sometimes ignorance as to what to do makes people think that a simple process is too hectic to even follow. But in the gradual awareness creation process, where we are educating the general public as to what to do, especially in obtaining a permit, in developing an area, people are now beginning to be conscious of the fact that I can easily do this and then ensure that my development conforms with the legal requirements and the technical requirements of the area. We have a client service unit in our department, and when there is any issue, you go there, they will tell you what to do, and as you follow that, you wouldn't fall into the hands of people who are there to deceive you and then plunder your resources.
There are sanctions for for both even officers as well as developers who do not conform to planning guidelines. We are further developing some legislative instruments that will guide developments within the assembly. So that has been done. And again, even with the Act 462, the Local Government Act, that provides some punitive measures for developers who do not conform to approved schemes.
Careful, orderly and coordinated planning is therefore a necessity. Forests continue to be depleted and what remains thereof urgently need protection.
The forest reserves have been made to remain same because you are not supposed to charge them. And you see that along any of the watersheds, the forest reserves are also being maintained.
So the spatial development framework identifies those vulnerable lands for protection. Then it also looks at key government projects that are taking place, and also the socio-economic infrastructure that needs to be provided to enhance the general livelihood of the people.
Projections also show a high influx of rural migration to urban centers. This particularly requires that attention be paid to agricultural subsectors such as the fisheries, forestry and food production, which are mostly the hardest hit by investments in the extractive sectors.
Because you realize that when the oil find came, everybody was thinking, oh, there's job opportunities down south at the coast where there is oil. Our food and lumber industry is up here in the north. If you are not mindful of putting in measures to sustain the communities up there, you realize that people will start trooping to the south to look for non-existing jobs. So as planning process, we also look at the dynamics of our settlement in order to put in interventions that will make stay of a larger of the population over there who will also continue doing the agric and the lumber business economy, sustain it there.
There is, however, a window of opportunity through integrated land use and natural resources management to transform the region into an energy, transport, mining, and oil and gas supply hub for West Africa.
Over the past 8 years, there has been a lot of significant achievements in the reforms in the land use and spatial planning system. And there are countries that are coming over to even learn from us.
The vision for the region has been defined as a spatially balanced, diversified and environmentally friendly economy that brings sufficient employment and social services for its people and the nation, based on sustainable use of our natural resource endowment.
The positive side is that, yes, we have the industrial companies coming and development, because when the companies come or they put up their plants, they will employ people from my community. There will be serious business going on, and it will bring Yenukrum to the limelight.
The Western Region Spatial Development Framework is a platform for the integration of spatial, social, economic, infrastructure and environmental policies to comply with this vision.
Because Western region is so rich, so endowed with all natural resources, with a pristine environment, with castles, our history, culture, Axine, etc. So I wanted to accommodate the new kid on the block without harming what's ongoing.
As the framework indicates the trunk infrastructure, government would be in a position to prioritize what type of infrastructure they would provide. In addition to that, they would be able to acquire land, especially for roads, so that in the future development of those roads, they don't pay compensation to people who would have somehow have settled on the land. And also, it wouldn't also lead to the displacement of people and resettling them somewhere, which creates a lot of problems. But when the framework is provided, it guides government in the provision of the infrastructure and the acquisition of the land for the public sector activities. And for investors, any investor would want to look at the long-term benefits. And because the framework has a long-term perspective, it guides investors as to where they can invest their resources for the present, medium-term, and long-term benefits. And it is good for investors in particular. And to landowners, when they know that a particular area would open up, they wouldn't just throw their land away at a pittance.
When people come that they want land, I first ask them, what do you want the land for? Some will talk about want to do energy. I said no, that is not for Nyenu Krum. Real estate, I said no, that is not for Nyenu Krum. Because it's like every community has a specific project or a plan. So I normally direct them to the DCE, to come to a district assembly, and then to the town and country planning, because they know the area. So the project or the development you want to bring to the district, they will be able to tell you where you can buy your land or get the land to develop.
I went to the Takoradi harbor area. I took one picture and analyzed it afterwards. On that picture, I saw at least 20 to 30 land use on 1 square kilometer. I saw bauxite deposits. I saw cocoa somewhere. I saw cattle. I saw railways. I saw oil.
The framework aims at resolving, harmonizing and coordinating the plans of the public and private sectors, development partners, traditional authorities and civil society organizations.
What the spatial development framework does with the communities is harmonizing the interests of the state, of the communities, of the investors. And this I lived closed hand, very close hand in Atwabo, Ainase. We did the structure plan for Ainase Atwabo area. And I could see a lot of conflicting interest with the environment, you know, the wetlands as Iluzu, you know, turtle nesting beaches. This is our environment, this is our planet. We have to take care of it.
The Spatial Development Framework findings help to determine some of the measures and structures required to ensure a positive and harmonious spatial and socio-economic development for the region.
This shows the type of framework. The National Spatial Development Framework would make proposals for the regions to adopt. But because of the oil find in the Western region, there was the urgent need to provide a Western region spatial development framework to guide the use of land in the area because of the mad rush of investors into the area. So the Western region framework superseded the National Spatial Development Framework.
This is to mitigate the downside of the development pattern currently emerging, with the aim of providing planning guidelines and directions to the districts of the region.
A structure plan was prepared for Shama, indicating how the land there would be used.
Basically, it looked at Shama, dividing it into 3 growth points. That we have the Jomo and Chaban area, the Wada Wesi, and then we have the Riposusupum Dunko. These are the growth pools. The Abada Wesi is the thermal enclave where we have a lot of power plants, and the Chaban Jomo area is basically for residential, to serve as a dormitory town for STMA because of the proximity. Then we have the Riposu Supum Dunko. That area looks at taking advantage of the farming activities taking place there to develop agro-based industries in that area.
And then also Elem area where we have the petrochemical industries. A structure plan was also prepared for that area. And in addition to that, local plans were prepared for Atwabo and then also for some other areas in Elebele for the petrochemical industries, and the Atuabo local plan was to guide the oil, the gas infrastructure development.
There were specific enclaves that the structural plan identified. We have the Atuabo up to Anochi area, which was designated as a heavy industrial area because of the presence of the Ghana gas processing plant, and the proposal of Lonro also coming there with the oil industry port there. And then we have the Sanzule Bakanta area, which also we identify as a major industrial enclave, which now there's been an acquisition in that area by Eni Ghana to site an offshore gas receiving facility there. And then we identified the Enyinasi area, to which the structural plan made proposal for that area to be developed into a mixed commercial residential area.
Subsequently, these would be aligned with the regional framework, the National Spatial Development Framework and the National Infrastructure Plan of the NDPC.
In the formulation of the National Spatial Development Framework, we have incorporated the proposals of the Western Region Framework into the National Framework.
The framework was prepared through a wide consultation process involving public, private and traditional interest groups.
We have involved the chiefs in the preparation of the framework. So our expectation is that the chief would embrace the Western Regional Spatial Development Framework. What we tried to avert was to hold as much as possible a lot of stakeholder consultation with our framework. We did as many as over 15 to 16 consultations. At every point in time, we went back to the people, to the chiefs and people, to consult them on what we think the region must look like. And it was with their proposals that we came out with the framework. And so we have them behind us. This is something that is not for them, but it is something that is with the people themselves. It was something that they had agreed to do, which we have put into a document.
In order to enhance and optimize the benefits of the Western region and the nation to make the most of the development potential in Western region and for Ghana as a whole, effective implementation is required.
The key thing is to ensure that this plan doesn't sit in the books, because I'm told that there are some regions that had received some special plans, some other development plans, but which never saw the light of day. They just stayed at their shelves in our offices. I think we need to move from there, because this is key. This is going to actually reduce the costs of doing business in the country, because everybody knows where to put what. And therefore, I will expect that we take this seriously. We have firm legislation on that. And not only the legislation, but also implementation. We should enforce our legislation without looking at faces, because oftentimes we know the right things, but we deliberately do the wrong things. So it is not enough to have beautiful spatial plans, to have beautiful development frameworks. It is important that we implement with all the zeal with which we plan, and then make sure that they benefit us.
This means that a clear distribution of roles, responsibilities and tasks is necessary, as well as close cooperation between central and local government.
Implementation is most critical. At the regional level, at best, Regional Coordinating Council should ensure that the district levels are implementing their frameworks and local plans based on the regional framework. And there is a process that allows that to happen for RCCs to do that kind of supervision, and that should be taken extremely seriously. But our district chief executives are the ones that have the sole responsibility now to ensure that, one, their local frameworks happen, their local plans happen, and two, they actually implement. Look, this country, people are looking for leadership, and when we show leadership, the way it must be shown. And we do what is right, people will come along.
In fact, several agencies are involved. In fact, there are so many. But to ensure that the collaboration is coordinated, we have introduced an institutional framework that has established a National Technical Committee. The National Technical Committee consists of the key ministries, departments, and agencies at the national level that are involved in, first of all, the formulation and in the implementation of the plan. There are 15 institutions, and key among them are the National Development Planning Commission, the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. We also have the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Local Government Service, the Road Sector Agencies, Ministry of Agri. As I mentioned, they are 15 in number. Of course, the House of Chiefs is also represented, being the custodians of land. In fact, they play a key role in the preparation and even in the implementation of the framework. And that is the composition of the National Technical Committee. From the National Technical Committee, we move to the regional oversight committees. And these are, a surrogate or the lower hierarchy institutions of the National Technical Committee. In fact, they are the institutions that operate in the regional level, and they are also 15 in number. They also look at the operationalization of the framework in the region. Then we go to the district, where we have district oversight committees. They are also 15 in number. So you see that the implementation process follows the decentralization system, starting from the national to the regional and to the district. And that is one of the key fundamental things introduced in the process that enhances the implementation of whatever plan is produced.
We want ownership. So at the inception stage, all institutions, all major, be the implemented, let's say in this particular example, highways, water, electricity, they were all, or they've been part of the preparatory stage, as well as being part of the validation. So as we speak, they all have copies and they know what to do, and they are using this in their various strategic plans by way of implementing and provision of the infrastructure. Another thing that is done at the local level is that we have a body we call the Statutory Planning Committee. It is at that level that this collaboration is even more demonstrated to get implementation done.
If this framework is effectively implemented, it will protect and preserve the rich endowment of environments and cultural traditions, create and maintain spatially balanced employment and social service delivery, recognize that change can be driven by well-coordinated infrastructure investment, and create a sustainable and diversified economy.
Strengthen your institutions, make them inclusive, not extractive.
The key thing is more in the implementation. I will insist that you've done a good work, but we need to implement that.
For once, we have a beautiful regional development framework. We have actors that might make it happen. People receive salaries for making things happen, so they should just get on with it and let's just do it.
We expect that developers, investors, the private citizenry, the chiefs and people of the region, or even the country, would take this as a document that would develop the region as a whole.
And I am optimistic that Ghana, it wouldn't be long at all. We would be shocking success in spatial development that is so beneficial to the general populace and to the envy of other countries.
Ghana.